Coming in. Ho! Live. Hey! At ease. Listen up, soldiers. While we're out here, you will be taking all commands from the tower. And I am the tower. Do you understand?
Yes, Sergeant!
Welcome to the Tower, your dose of military news delivered with an infernal edge. My name is Magister Campbell, and today we are discussing storing firearms for struggling soldiers. The article is titled, "A Veteran Started a Gun Shop. When a struggling soldier asked him to store his firearms, he started saving lives." This is from CBS News by Kara Debachnik, September 16, 2023. When Caleb Morse got a call from his army buddy he served with in Iraq announcing he was in Louisiana, he had his feelings something was wrong. He couldn't understand why his buddy, who lived in Colorado Springs, had suddenly shown up in the South. Morse says he told him, "Man, I love having you here, and my wife and kids love seeing you and everything else. And you're great to be around, but you would never move to Louisiana." A few days later, his friend showed up at Rustic Renegade, a gun shop and shooting range that Morse, 39, had opened in Lafayette, Louisiana, about a year earlier in 2018 after leaving the military, where he served in the Combat Unit 2nd Infantry Division Special Troops Battalion. His friend arrived with his car and his dog. He opened his trunk and started to unload his car, Morse recalled. "He started to bring all these guns inside the shop," Morse said. "And I'm like, brother, what are you doing?" Morse knew from his time in the military that often when people start giving away their things, they can be considering suicide. He knew his friend was in a bad spot, so Morse asked him to sit, but I grabbed 2 cups of coffee, and when I came back, he was gone. He didn't answer Morse's calls. He left cold. He didn't answer his phone, but Morse still had his firearms. He decided to hold them at Rustic Renegade in case his friend ever came back. 6 months passed. Finally, his friend called and explained that he'd been in a bad spot and wondered where his guns were. Morse said he told him, "They're your guns, man. They're yours. You may want them back. And whenever you're ready, they're here for you." More than half of all gun-related deaths in the United States are suicides, according to the Center for Disease Control. In 2022, the CDC reported that 26,993 people died by firearm suicide. Deaths by gun suicide are at an all-time high and have steadily increased, nearly uninterrupted, since 2006, according to researchers at Johns Hopkins School of Public Health. In the veteran population, the problem is acute. In its 2022 National Veteran Suicide Prevention Report, the Department of Veteran Affairs found that suicide rate in 2020 was 57.3% greater for veterans. Guns are more commonly involved among veteran suicides at 71% than the rest of the population at 50.3%, according to the CDC. Somehow, another veteran a short time later came into Morse's shop and told Morse he too was in a bad spot. The veteran asked Morse to hold his guns at Rustic Renegade. Morse decided to set up a system that logged the guns into the store's books and gave the veteran a receipt and told him to pick up his firearms when he felt better. Morse says he thought nothing of it. Other veterans dropped off guns about a dozen times in just over a year, he said, when he got a call from Gala True. True, an associate professor at Louisiana State University School of Medicine who researches community-engaged efforts to prevent veteran suicide, met Morse in 2021. She was coordinating with firearms retailers interested in providing options for those in crisis who wanted to store firearms outside their homes. Quote, "We try to create time and distance between a person having a mental health crisis and a loaded firearm," True said. The Armory Project was launched in Louisiana in 2021 with 3 retailers interested in providing storage. Through a Veterans Administration grant, True and her team provided infrastructure and resources to the firearms retailers to build networks and partnerships. Louisiana joined 9 other states, including Colorado, New Jersey, Mississippi, Maryland, and Washington, in the growing number of communities that have developed temporary storage off-site for firearms. In 2018, Colorado built its first statewide map showing storage or places considering storage. Other states have followed by building detailed online maps that show retailers that can temporarily hold firearms. The Biden administration has supported off-site storage for suicide prevention. Suicide prevention experts know people in crisis who don't have easy access to guns will not likely find another way to kill themselves. Suicide prevention expert Mike Anestis, executive director of the New Jersey Gun Violence Research Center and a professor at Rutgers University, said no other methods are as close to as lethal as firearms for suicide death. Around 90 to 95% of suicide attempts with a firearm will result in death, while less than 5% of all other attempts will result in death, he said. In a country that already has an estimated 400 million guns in circulation, the solution just can't be about banning firearms or stopping people from buying them, says Anestis. Anestis said outside storage is a public health approach similar to approaches with issues like drunk driving is to take the keys and limit access. Quote, "We've learned the best way to prevent the outcome that you're trying to avoid is to limit the individual's access to the method that can cause that outcome," said Anestis. Gun owners have to be able to make decisions that allow them to retain control over their autonomy as well as fits their values, says Anestis. Outside storage can be a legal and truly effective way to prevent injury and death, he said. Temporary storage also serves as a solution for firearm owners who might not want a gun in their home for various reasons, such as a grandchild visiting or if a teen or other family member inside a home is struggling. True and Morse both say for these programs to succeed, gun shops need to be able to participate so gun owners can feel they have a safe place to store their firearms. Gun owners generally can't just hand over their firearms to anybody they want. Federal law doesn't prohibit people from storing guns for each other on a personal basis, but each state has various regulations saying who can hold onto a gun and who is liable. Some states, such as Washington and Vermont, allow immediate or extended family members to hold onto guns if a family member is in crisis. But other states, such as New York or Massachusetts, prohibit the transfer of any firearms. And since states have such a patchwork of laws, researchers and firearms shops feel those shops can be the best repository for outside storage. But the businesses need to be protected, said True. She said one of the main questions firearms shop owners asked when the Armory project launched was, if a person goes on to harm themselves, can the firearm retailer be sued and lose their business? Moore says that when he first decided to start his program, he contacted a lawyer who said, no, you're opening yourself to a ton of liability. What if you give them their firearm back and they kill themselves? Moore said he was going to store the guns anyway. He answered the lawyer, I just want to give them a pause. That moment in time where they say, look, someone cares. Maybe life isn't so bad. In Louisiana, the coalition worked to pass legislation that said gun shop owners wouldn't be liable. The legislation passed easily with very little concern, said True. Coalitions in Texas and Oregon are trying to pass similar laws, she said. In July 2023, the ATF issued an open letter to FFL and gun shops clarifying how to legally and safely store firearms for individuals. One option is providing gun storage lockers at the gun shop that an individual can open and put their firearms inside. In this situation, an FFL does not receive or acquire the firearm into its inventory, nor does the FFL assume control of the individual's firearm, the letter said, which can reduce liability for gun shops that want to provide outside storage for others. Moore said that 2 combat tours in Iraq, serving in the National Guard and then working as a military contractor in Iraq for 4 years, essentially running from my problems, he fell into a depression returning home to Louisiana. Like many other soldiers, he struggled upon entering a society that often doesn't understand military that served in combat. He says he survived due to the support of his wife, who is his high school sweetheart, and his 2 children. He says, I know what it's like to have that dark place. I know what it's like to have that weight on your shoulders, where you feel like, you know what? I suck. You know what? I failed. Since that first time, Morse says he stored about 100 firearms, if not more, for veterans who are thinking of hurting themselves or others, and installed outside storage lockers in his shop. And it's been a blessing, he said. It's been a big blessing to help people. I think storing firearms for those who are inclined to use them against themselves is arguably the best action one can take. I think, unfortunately, not a lot of individuals are always in their right mind when they have access, that moment of clarity where they can just say, look, if I keep this frame of mind, if I keep walking down this path, then I am going to hurt myself. And so I have to get rid of the implements that are going to make it easy for me to hurt myself. I think that is a difficult frame of mind for people to get into. I think more often than not, they want to keep them around just in case it does seem like the best option. And we have to be honest when it comes to suicidal thoughts. It is not a weakness in a person. It is not an easy out. For most cases, it is literally the only option. They're in a place that is so dark and so painful that they don't see that there could possibly be an alternative. They don't see that there is value in any other choice, that this is literally the only choice, not a lesser one, not one that gives them some sort of out of pain or struggling or anything else. It is literally the only rational possibility to stop the pain or the torment that they're feeling. Anyone who says that it's a weakness or somehow it's sort of like a giving up clearly does not understand. PTSD is real, and it doesn't require justification or acceptance from others. It is something that the individual feels, and it's something that sometimes they cannot get their hands around without help. So whenever you approach this concept of suicide prevention, starting from a position of, well, it's just a weakness, not only are you doing a disservice to the individual suffering, but you're proving that you're a fucking ignorant asshole who doesn't give a fuck about anyone else except for your bland attempts at trying to wrap your brain around something that you clearly don't understand. There is help out there for people who are suffering. You can look into therapy. You can look into veterans organizations. There's an organization that I love to support called Canines for Warriors, which is a nonprofit that provides highly trained service dogs to military veterans suffering from PTSD and traumatic brain injury and military sexual trauma. A lot of these dogs that they provide to veterans are rescues themselves, and so it's this really innovative program that allows not just the canines, but also the veterans themselves to build this wonderful bond between them, and they can both collectively heal and recover together. I think that is a wonderful avenue of approach when it comes to depression and when it comes to suicidal thoughts. It's removing yourself from your own thoughts. I think that is the first step, and then once you're out of that frame of mind, you're able to then explore alternate concepts. And in this particular way, with this particular organization, caninesforwarriors.org is the website, you can actually step away from yourself and look at another form of life that is also suffering, and you can together work on rebuilding each other. Because instead of just wallowing in your own mind, you're now stepping out of it and looking at something else and worrying and caring for and taking care of that other thing. And that is arguably the best way to get through some of these really dark feelings and thoughts that you can easily never find your way out of without external support. And the reality of this being a program, not the Canines for Warriors, but the different gun shops offering firearm storage for outsiders, is a great way to not only remove yourself from the implements of your own potential destruction, thereby making it more complicated for you to follow through with some of these tunnel vision thoughts that we can find ourselves in. But it's also a great way to create a safe environment for anyone else that comes into your home or your apartment or whatever, whether that's an animal or whether that's another human being. The fact that this was ever be a liability for gun store owners blows my mind. What kind of litigious, ridiculous society do we live in where that could even be a concept? Like, these people are providing a service for people in desperate need. You should be thanking them and throwing money at them, not threatening legal action against them. It's ridiculous. I think this is honestly a program that should be countrywide and only at the behest of the individual veteran or individual gun owner who wants to take advantage of the situation. But it should be federally funded. No individual gun shop should be having to buy their own gun safes and store them on site at their own dime. This should be something that is a public health option. every single individual, whether you're a veteran or not, should be able to go into any gun shop and store your guns safely if that is something that you want to do. And if the government genuinely cared about reducing firearm deaths and suicides from firearms, then this should be federally accepted and federally funded. Now, that's not to say it's the only option, because again, there are nonprofit organizations that could also be built up around this concept or simply fund this concept for local gun stores. And local towns, municipalities, and governments, statewide and citywide, should be funneling money into this as well. These are people who have put their lives on the line for everyone else, for all of their rights. The least you could do, literally the least you could do, aside from nothing, is to provide them an opportunity to deal with their own traumas and their own pain in a safe way, ensuring that they do not have, at their own choice, access to their own firearms, and that they are stored in a safe, logical place, like a gun shop. I thought this was a fantastic article when I came across it, and I'm so very, very glad that it's out there, and that Morse is actually doing this with his gun store, Rustic Renegade, because we need more people like this. And you don't have to be a veteran to understand it, and you don't have to be a veteran to explore it or to support it. You just have to be a compassionate human being with a base respect for those that have fought and served for your freedoms. That's it. And I'm not saying that you have to love every veteran or you have to go out of your way to help them, but simply having programs like this that do not put the gun store at any legal threat is a no goddamn brainer. So let's look into this collectively as a society, because it is goddamn worth it, and veterans are worth any financial sacrifice that this might put on any individual municipality or state or federal government. Like, let's stop just doing lip service and let's actually do something about it. Let's put money in these gun store owners' hands and let them create a system that protects not just the individual veterans, but also potentially a lot of other, stemming the tide of a lot of other mass shootings by getting guns out of people willingly. Of course, I want to put that, this is an optional program here. Gets it out of homes with troubled teens or troubled adults, and in a safe place where there's a little bit of accountability. Not everyone who can afford a gun can afford a safe. They're incredibly expensive. And yes, you should always lock up your firearms, but that also flies in the face of why you have them in the first place, which is home protection in most cases, or hunting. And if it's home protection and you have it all locked up, the chance of you getting to it before a home invasion occurs is slim to none. And so it's this sort of catch-22. You have the gun in the house, but then you don't want to lock it up so that you can have easy access to it in case you actually need it. But then if you don't have easy access to it when you need it, then it's going to be more challenging, so you may as well not have it in the house. But then if you do have it unsecured in the house, well, then it's then available for anyone else to use in any number of ways, whether it's self-harm or harm to others. So I think this is a wonderful program that can actually save a whole lot of lives, infinitely more than just veterans, but also because, that's sort of the framing of this whole show, it's worth it just for the veterans in and of itself. Rustic Renegade is doing a great thing in Louisiana, and I'm hoping that a lot of other gun stores can follow through. I'm in Utah, and I gotta reach out to my senators because this is definitely something we should do. And if you're a veteran struggling, look into this on your own, but also look into other help. You are not alone, and you can find a way to work through what you're dealing with. Canine for Warriors is one option, but there's a lot of other organizations out there for you to explore. So if you need help, reach out. You owe it to yourself. All right, soldiers, that's all I have for you today. Company, I can hoot!